Captain Zilthara pressed her crystalline hand against the cold metal wall of her ship. The gentle current was dying around her, and she could feel it in every fiber of her being. The lights flickered weakly, casting strange shadows across the bridge where her crew worked desperately to keep their vessel alive. Through the main window, she could see the twisted remains of 3 other Cathari ships floating in the darkness. The Vrachtal swarm had found them 2 days ago while they were studying the beautiful rings of a distant planet. Her people had come here to learn about the universe, to discover new wonders and share knowledge with other peaceful species. Instead, they had found death. The swarm ships looked like giant insects made of dark metal and pulsing flesh. They moved through space like living creatures, hunting and killing everything in their path. When they attacked the small Cathari research fleet, there had been no warning, no attempt to communicate. The alien vessels had simply opened fire with weapons that burned through their ships like acid through paper. Zilthara's species had never built weapons. They had never needed to. On their home world of Cathara, the most dangerous creature was a small flying insect that made an annoying buzzing sound. Their people looked like giant butterflies with crystal wings and gentle faces. They had learned to travel between stars not because they were running from danger, but because they loved to explore and learn new things. Now her beautiful research ship was broken and bleeding air into space. Half her crew was injured, and their doctor was working without rest to save the wounded. The hyperdrive was completely destroyed, leaving them stranded far from home. Their communication system was damaged, but still working enough to send a basic message. "Captain," called her communication officer, a young Cathari named Valanda. Her crystal wings were cracked from the attack, but she still worked at her station. "The swarm ships are moving away, but our sensors show they will return soon. They seem to be calling for more of their kind." Zilthara closed her eyes and tried to think. Her people had no military, no weapons, no way to fight back against the monsters that had found them. But maybe, somewhere in the vast galaxy, there were other species who could help. She had heard stories from other explorers about races that were stronger, more advanced, perhaps even willing to help strangers in need. "Valanda, can you send a message on all frequencies? A distress call to anyone who might be listening?" The young officer's antennae twitched with worry. "Captain, we do not know what kind of beings might receive such a message. What if we attract something even worse than the swarm?" Zilthara looked around her dying ship and made her decision. "Send the message. Include our location, images of the swarm attacks, and tell them we are peaceful explorers who need help. Maybe someone out there will have mercy on us." Far across the galaxy, on a small blue and green planet called Earth, Dr. Lisa Martinez was finishing her night shift at the Deep Space Monitoring Station. She loved her job listening for signals from space, hoping to find proof that humanity was not alone in the universe. Most nights brought only the background noise of distant stars, but tonight was different. Her computer screen suddenly filled with data. As an unknown signal reached Earth, the message was clearly artificial, sent by intelligent beings, and it was asking for help. Lisa's heart raced as she worked to decode the alien language. The signal contained pictures, mathematical concepts, and what looked like star maps. As she translated the message, Lisa felt her excitement turn to horror. The images showed beautiful crystal beings under attack by nightmare creatures that looked like living weapons. Ships were burning, people were dying, and somewhere far away, an entire species was crying out for salvation. She immediately called Admiral Jake Burton at Terran Defense Command. Burton was a tough old soldier who had spent 30 years protecting Earth and her colonies from threats, both known and unknown. His face appeared on her screen, showing the scars he had earned fighting pirates and hostile aliens in the outer systems. "Dr. Martinez, what do you have for me?" Burton's voice was calm but alert. He was used to late-night calls about potential threats. "Admiral, we've received a distress signal from an unknown alien species. They're under attack by something called the Vrachtal swarm. Sir, I think these might be the same creatures that hit New Austin 3 years ago." Burton's expression grew dark at the mention of New Austin. The human colony had been completely destroyed by biomechanical creatures that consumed everything in their path. Over 50,000 people had died before Earth's military could respond, and the attackers had vanished into deep space before they could be stopped. Send me everything you have, Doctor. I'm calling an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. Within an hour, Burton was standing in the war room surrounded by his top officers. Colonel Amy Rodriguez, his best Marine commander, studied the alien images on the main screen. Chief Engineer Danny Walsh examined the technical data from the distressed ship. Captain Roy Phillips, commander of the destroyer Iron Will, reviewed the tactical situation. The signal came from the Kepler 442 system, Burton explained to his team. Long-range sensors confirm multiple unknown vessels in that area, and at least one of them matches the biosignatures we recorded at New Austin. Colonel Rodriguez looked up from her analysis. Sir, these crystal beings don't appear to have any weapons at all. Their ships are built for exploration, not fighting. They're completely defenseless against the swarm. How long to reach their position? Burton asked Captain Phillips. 18 hours at maximum jump speed, sir. The Iron Will is ready to depart immediately. Burton studied the faces of the desperate aliens on the screen. They looked so different from humans, like living jewels that had learned to think and feel. But their fear was universal, something any human could understand. These beings were facing extinction, and they had reached out across the void hoping someone would care enough to help. Take the Iron Will and respond to their distress call, Burton ordered. Dr. Martinez will accompany you as our expert on alien communication. Colonel Rodriguez, load a full Marine complement. Chief Walsh, bring everything you need to repair their ship. As his officers prepared to leave, Burton felt the weight of the decision he had just made. Humanity would answer this call for help, just as they had answered every such call since reaching the stars. But what these peaceful aliens didn't know was that their signal had reached a species forged in violence, shaped by millions of years of surviving on a world that constantly tried to kill them. The Cathari had asked for rescue from the worst possible species to ask. They had no idea that Deathworlders were coming to save them. The Iron Will dropped out of hyperspace like a predator emerging from the shadows. Captain Roy Phillips stood on the bridge, his scarred hands gripping the command chair as he studied the scene before them. The Cathari ship Gentle Current hung in space like a wounded bird, its beautiful crystal hull cracked and bleeding atmosphere into the void. Surrounding the alien vessel were 6 swarm scout ships, their dark biomechanical hulls pulsing with sickly light. The creatures were probing the damaged ship with energy beams, looking for weak spots to exploit. They moved with the patient hunger of sharks circling wounded prey. All weapons online, Captain, reported Lieutenant Ben Torres from the tactical station. His young face was hard with concentration as targeting data flowed across his screens. Phillips nodded grimly. Take them out. No warnings, no mercy. These things don't negotiate. The Iron Will unleashed 80 months of human anger in 30 seconds of pure violence. Kinetic rounds traveling at significant fractions of light speed punched through swarm hulls like bullets through paper. Nuclear-tipped missiles followed, turning alien bioships into expanding clouds of radioactive plasma. The human destroyer moved through the enemy formation like a wolf among sheep, its weapons speaking the only language the swarm understood. On the bridge of the Gentle Current, Captain Zilthara watched in stunned silence as the unknown ship destroyed her attackers with casual efficiency. The vessel was smaller than her research ship, but it moved with deadly purpose. Every line of its design spoke of violence and war, from the armor plating to the weapon ports that still glowed with recent fire. Captain, whispered the Landa, her crystal wings trembling with fear and amazement. They destroyed all 6 swarm ships in less than a minute. What kind of beings are these? Before Zilthar could answer, her communication system activated. The face that appeared on her screen made her step backward in shock. The creature looked like the predators from her people's oldest nightmares, with forward-facing eyes that seemed to look directly into her soul. Its skin was marked with scars, and its expression held an intensity that made her want to hide. "This is Captain Roy Phillips of the Terran vessel Iron Will," the human said, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "We received your distress signal." "Are you in immediate danger?" Zilthara found her voice with difficulty. "I am Captain Zilthara of the Cathari research vessel Gentle Current. We thank you for destroying those creatures. Our ship is badly damaged and many of my crew are injured." Philip studied her for a moment, and she could see him cataloging everything about her appearance and behavior. "We're sending over a boarding party to assess your situation and provide medical assistance. Our people will help repair your ship and treat your wounded." The idea of allowing these frightening beings aboard her vessel terrified Zilthara, but she had no choice. Her people were dying, and these strange creatures had just saved them from certain destruction. We welcome your assistance." Within minutes, a human shuttle had docked with the Gentle Current. The first person through the airlock was Dr. Katie Brooks, the Iron Will's chief medical officer. She carried equipment that looked more like weapons than healing tools, and her manner was brisk and efficient as she surveyed the Cathari wounded. Following her came Chief Engineer Danny Walsh, a stocky man whose hands bore the calluses of someone who had spent years working with dangerous machinery. His eyes immediately went to the ship's damaged systems, and he began making notes on a device that seemed to analyze everything he looked at. Colonel Amy Rodriguez brought up the rear with 2 Marines, their weapons ready but not threatening. The soldiers moved through the ship with the fluid grace of people trained for combat, checking every corner and shadow for potential threats. "My God," whispered Dr. Brooks as she knelt beside a severely injured Cathari engineer. The aliens. Crystal Wing was completely shattered, and fluid that might have been blood leaked from multiple wounds. How is this being still alive? She immediately went to work with her medical equipment, using tools designed to keep human soldiers fighting in the worst possible conditions. The Cathari medical officer, a gentle being named Helmara, watched in amazement as Brooks stabilized patients that she had given up for dead. "Your healing methods are so aggressive," Helmara said quietly. "On our world, we use gentle energy fields to encourage natural healing, but your techniques actually force the body to repair itself." Brooks looked up from her patient, her hands still working steadily. "Where I come from, people get hurt in ways that would kill your people instantly. We've learned to fix damage that nature never intended anyone to survive." Meanwhile, Chief Walsh was examining the Gentle Current's propulsion system with growing amazement. The technology was beautiful, elegant, and completely peaceful in its design. Every component worked in harmony with the others, creating a perfect balance that his engineer's mind could appreciate. "This is incredible work," he told the Cathari chief engineer, a nervous being named Takmiran. "Your people have mastered technologies that we're still struggling to understand. But I have to ask, where are your defensive systems?" Takmiran looked confused. "Defensive systems? We do not understand this concept." Walsh stared at the alien in disbelief. "Shields, armor, backup power systems, emergency bulkheads. What happens if something goes wrong? Why would anything go wrong?" Takmiran asked innocently. "Our ships are built for exploration and learning. We have never encountered beings who would wish to harm us." The human engineer felt a chill run down his spine as he realized the truth. These people had never known war, never faced hostile aliens, never even conceived that someone might want to hurt them. Their ships were works of art, not instruments of survival. Colonel Rodriguez was conducting her own examination of the ship's layout when she discovered something that shocked her even more than the lack of weapons. The Cathari had no security systems at all. No locked doors, no restricted areas, no way to prevent unauthorized access to critical systems. "Captain Zilthara," she said carefully, "what do you do if someone tries to take control of your ship?" The crystal being tilted her head in confusion. "Why would anyone wish to do such a thing? If someone needed transportation, we would gladly share our vessel with them." Rodriguez felt her world shift as she realized she was talking to people who had never learned to distrust, never needed to guard against betrayal, never even imagined that intelligent beings could be evil. These aliens were like children playing in a garden, completely unaware that wolves existed in the world beyond their fence. Dr. Martinez arrived on the second shuttle, her equipment ready to establish communication protocols with the peaceful aliens. But as she listened to the conversations taking place around her, she began to understand that they had encountered something far more precious and fragile than just another alien species. The Cathari were innocents in a galaxy full of predators, and they had just asked the most dangerous predators of all to be their protectors. The irony was not lost on her as she watched human soldiers moving through the crystal ship like guardian angels armed with instruments of death. Captain Phillips received regular reports from his boarding party, and each update made him more concerned. These aliens were completely defenseless, not just militarily but psychologically. They couldn't even conceive of the dangers that surrounded them in the dark spaces between stars. As he studied the tactical display showing swarm reinforcements approaching from deep space, Phillips realized that his ship had just become the only thing standing between an entire peaceful species and extinction. The Cathari had called for help, and humanity had answered. Now the real question was whether the Deathworlders could protect the innocents long enough to teach them how to survive in a universe that wanted to kill them. Dr. Lisa Martinez sat in the gentle current's beautiful crystal library, trying to understand how a species could survive without ever learning to fight. Across from her, Captain Zilthara explained her people's history while images flowed across a wall made of living light. "Our world has no large predators," Zilthara said, her musical voice filled with pride. "The most dangerous creature on Cathara is the singing mite, a tiny insect that makes loud noises when disturbed. Our ancestors evolved from creatures similar to your butterflies, but in a paradise where nothing wished them harm." Martinez watched scenes of the Cathari homeworld play across the crystal display. Rolling fields of flowers stretched to distant mountains, while the butterfly-like aliens danced through gardens that looked like something from a fairy tale. There were no walls around their cities, no guards at their buildings, no weapons anywhere to be seen. "How did you develop space travel?" Martinez asked. "On Earth, we reached the stars because we needed resources, or because we were running from wars, or because we wanted to spread out before something destroyed our whole planet." Zilthara's antennae twitched with curiosity. "We built starships because we wanted to see what was beyond our sky. We hoped to find new forms of beauty, to learn from other peaceful species, to share knowledge and art across the galaxy. Why would anyone want to leave their world for violent reasons?" Before Martinez could answer, Colonel Rodriguez entered the library. Her combat boots made sharp sounds on the crystal floor, and her presence seemed to fill the delicate space with tension. She had been trying to teach basic security procedures to the Cathari crew, but the lessons weren't going well. "Doctor, we have a problem," Rodriguez said grimly. "I just spent 2 hours trying to explain the concept of guard duty to their security chief. He keeps asking why anyone would want to enter areas where they aren't welcome." Zilthara looked confused. "Is this not obvious? If someone wishes to visit a place, we invite them. If they do not wish to visit, they stay away. Why would anyone go where they are not wanted?" Rodriguez sat down heavily, her weapons and armor looking strangely out of place among the flowing crystal furniture. "Captain, on my world, people sometimes take things that don't belong to them. They hurt others to get what they want. They lie and steal and kill. We have to protect ourselves from other humans as much as from alien threats." The Cathari captain stared at Rodriguez with growing horror. "Your own species attacks itself? But you are all the same kind of being. Why would you harm your own people?" "Resources," Rodriguez explained patiently. "Territory, power, sometimes just because they enjoy causing pain. Earth is a hard world. Captain, everything on our planet either wants to eat us, poison us, freeze us, burn us, or crush us. We had to become fighters just to survive childhood." Martinez nodded and pulled up images of Earth on her tablet. "Look at this, Captain Zilthara. These are some of Earth's creatures." The Cathari gasped as she saw tigers stalking through jungles, sharks hunting in dark waters, and eagles diving from the sky with talons extended. Each image showed predators designed by evolution to kill efficiently and without mercy. "These animals share your world?" Zilthara whispered. "How do your people survive among such monsters?" "We became better monsters," Rodriguez said simply. "Humans are persistence hunters. We can track prey for days across any terrain. We can survive injuries that would kill most creatures. We can work together to bring down enemies much larger and stronger than we are, and we never, ever give up." Chief Walsh joined them, his hands dirty from working on the ship's repairs. "Captain Zilthara, I need to ask you something. Your ship's computer systems have no security at all. Anyone who gets aboard can access everything from navigation to life support. Doesn't that worry you? Why would it?" she asked innocently. "If someone is aboard our ship, they are our guests. Guests should have access to whatever they need to be comfortable." Walsh looked at Rodriguez and Martinez with disbelief. "On human ships, we have dozens of security levels. Even my own crew can't access certain systems without special codes. We assume that anyone who gets aboard might be an enemy trying to kill us." The conversation was interrupted by Lieutenant Ben Torres and Ensign Carla Davis, two young officers from the Iron Will who had come to help with repairs. They had been listening to the exchange with growing amazement. "Captain Zilthara," Torres said respectfully, "may I ask what your people do for entertainment?" The crystal being brightened immediately. "We compose songs about the beauty of distant stars. We create dances that celebrate the harmony between different forms of life. We tell stories of explorers who discover wonderful new worlds filled with peaceful creatures." Davis smiled at the alien's enthusiasm. "On Earth, our most popular stories are about wars. We have tales of heroes who die fighting impossible odds, of soldiers who sacrifice themselves to save others, of battles that determine the fate of entire worlds. Even our children play games where they pretend to be warriors." Zilthara's wings trembled with distress. "Your children pretend to fight? But why would young ones want to practice violence?" "Because someday they might need to defend themselves," Torres explained. "Every human child learns that the universe is dangerous, that there are things out there that want to hurt them. We teach them to be ready." Walsh was installing human-designed security systems on the Cathari computer networks, explaining each step to the alien engineers. "This is a firewall," he said, pointing to streams of code. "It watches for unauthorized access attempts and blocks them. And this is an intrusion detection system that alerts us if someone tries to break in." Takmiran, the Cathari chief engineer, studied the new systems with growing anxiety. "You have built walls inside our own computers? But how will our crew access the information they need?" "With passwords, authorization codes, and biometric scanners," Walsh replied. "Everyone gets access to what they need for their job, but nothing more. If someone tries to access something they shouldn't, the system stops them and alerts security." "But what if they truly need the information?" Takmiran asked desperately. "What if there is an emergency?" "Then they follow emergency protocols," Walsh said patiently. "We have procedures for everything because we've learned that people panic in crisis situations. Clear rules keep everyone alive when things go wrong." Dr. Martinez was taking notes on everything she observed, building a profile of a species that had never known fear. "Captain Zilthara, what happens on your world when someone disagrees with another person?" "They discuss their different viewpoints until they find a solution that makes everyone happy," the alien replied. "Sometimes this takes many days of gentle conversation, but eventually harmony is always restored." "What if they can't agree?" Martinez pressed. "What if one person wants something that another person doesn't want them to have?" Zilthara looked genuinely puzzled. "Then they would not take it. To do so would cause unhappiness, and no civilized being would choose to make another creature sad." Rodriguez exchanged glances with the other humans. "Captain, what we're trying to tell you is that not all species think like yours. The swarm doesn't care about your happiness. They want to capture you and turn you into slaves who serve their hive mind. They will hurt you and your people without feeling any guilt or sadness about it. The weight of this revelation seemed to crush Zilthara's spirit. Her crystal wings drooped as she began to understand the true nature of the universe beyond her. Peaceful world. You are saying that there are beings who choose to cause pain, who take joy in the suffering of others. Yes, Martina said gently. And that's why you need to learn to protect yourselves. Not because we want you to become violent, but because violence already exists in the galaxy. The only choice is whether you'll be ready for it when it finds you. As if summoned by her words, Captain Phillips' voice crackled over the communication system. All hands, prepare for incoming swarm fleet. Long-range sensors detect approximately 50 bioships approaching our position. Estimated time to arrival: 4 hours. The humans immediately shifted into combat mode, their casual demeanor replaced by professional urgency. They moved with practiced efficiency toward their duties, while the Cathari crew watched in fascination and terror. Zilthara realized that she was about to witness what happened when Deathworlders prepared for war. The Vractal swarm fleet tore through space like a plague of living nightmares. 50 bioships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their hulls pulsing with organic light as they scanned for prey. Each vessel looked like a giant insect crossed with a warship, covered in armor that breathed and weapons that hungered for blood. On the bridge of the Iron Will, Captain Phillips watched the enemy fleet approach with cold calculation. His crew moved around him with practiced efficiency, each person focused on their deadly task. The bridge lights had dimmed to red, and the air hummed with the power of weapons charging for battle. "Tactical analysis, Lieutenant Torres," Phillips ordered, his voice steady as stone. 50 confirmed bioships, sir. Multiple ship classes including hunters, carriers, and at least 3 heavy assault variants. They're moving in a sphere formation, trying to surround us and cut off escape routes. Phillips nodded grimly. Just like New Austin. They want to trap us here and feed on both ships. He activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. We are heavily outnumbered, but we've faced worse odds before. Our job is to protect the Cathari vessel and buy time for reinforcements to arrive. Make every shot count, and remember what these monsters did to our people at New Austin. On the gentle current, Captain Zilthara watched the approaching fleet with growing terror. The swarm ships moved like living predators, their hulls rippling with muscle and bone. She could see weapons that looked like giant teeth and claws, designed not just to destroy but to tear apart their victims with savage hunger. "Captain," whispered Valanda, "there are so many of them. How can one human ship fight against such numbers?" Before Zilthara could answer, the Iron Will suddenly accelerated toward the enemy fleet. The human destroyer charged directly into the center of the swarm formation, defying every rule of sensible combat that the Cathari understood. Instead of running or trying to hide, the humans were attacking. "What are they doing?" gasped Takmarin from his engineering station. "They should retreat and call for help, not fight a battle they cannot win." Dr. Martinez, who had remained aboard the alien ship to coordinate communications, looked up from her equipment with fierce pride in her eyes. "They're being human," she said simply. "When something threatens people under our protection, we don't run, we fight." The battle began with the Iron Will firing everything it had into the swarm formation. Nuclear missiles streaked through space like angry stars, while kinetic rounds punched holes through bioship hulls at incredible speeds. The human destroyer moved like a wolf among sheep, using its speed and firepower to stay ahead of the enemies. Response: Chief Walsh had managed to install basic shield generators on the gentle current, but they were designed for human ships and barely compatible with Cathari technology. The protective barrier flickered and sparked as swarm weapons tested its strength. "Those shields won't last long," Walsh told Captain Zilthara over the communication link. "When they fail, you need to move your people to the center of the ship and seal all the bulkheads." "But what about our research data?" Zilthara asked. "Desperately. We have spent years collecting information about distant worlds. If we lose it—" "Captain," Walsh interrupted gently, "data can be replaced. Your people cannot." The first wave of swarm boarding pods launched toward both ships like living bullets. The pods were grown rather than built, with acid secreting tips that could burn through any armor. They moved with organic grace, adjusting their course to follow their targets no matter how they tried to dodge. Colonel Rodriguez and her Marines were waiting in the iron Will's quarters when the first pods punched through the hull. The boarding tubes hissed open, releasing creatures that looked like giant ants crossed with machines. The Vrachtal drones had 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws, and their heads were filled with compound eyes that glowed with alien intelligence. Contact. Front, Rodriguez shouted, opening fire with her plasma rifle. The weapon's energy bolts tore through the first wave of boarders, but more kept coming. The Marines fell back to prepared positions, using every trick they had learned in years of fighting both humans and aliens on the gentle current. The Cathari crew watched in amazement as human soldiers moved through their crystal corridors like deadly dancers. Each Marine knew exactly where to be and what to do, working together with the smooth coordination of a pack-hunting prey. Sergeant Mike Jackson threw himself in front of a wounded Cathari engineer as swarm drones poured through a boarding breach. His armor absorbed claws that would have killed the alien instantly, while his rifle spoke rapid death into the enemy ranks. When his weapon ran dry, he drew a combat knife and continued fighting with savage intensity. "Why do they fight so hard for us?" Valanda whispered to Dr. Martinez as they huddled behind an emergency barrier. "We are strangers to them. Why do they risk their lives for people they just met?" Martinez watched Sergeant Jackson take a terrible wound while protecting another Seferi civilian, yet continue fighting without hesitation. "Because that's what humans do," she said with quiet pride. "We protect those who cannot protect themselves. It's who we are." The battle raged through both ships as human damage control teams performed miracles under fire. They sealed hull breaches, while swarm acid ate through the metal around them. They rerouted power while enemy weapons overloaded their systems. They kept fighting even when the situation seemed hopeless, because humans had learned long ago that giving up meant death. Captain Phillips coordinated the defense from his bridge while steering the Iron Will through impossible maneuvers. His ship was taking massive damage, but it was also dealing death to the swarm fleet. Every human weapon was firing, every system pushed to its breaking point, every crew member giving everything they had to protect the innocents. "Sir," Torres reported, "we've destroyed 12 enemy ships, but we're down to 30% shields and our main engines are failing. They're trying to overwhelm us with sheer numbers." "Hull breach on deck 7, called another officer. "Marines are holding, but barely." Phillips felt the weight of command as he realized his ship was dying around him. They had hurt the swarm badly, but 50 ships were too many for one human destroyer to handle. He was about to order the crew to prepare for ramming speed when his communication officer shouted with joy, "Captain, multiple human ships dropping out of hyperspace. It's Admiral Thompson with the entire Third Fleet." Through the main view screen, Phillips saw the most beautiful sight in the galaxy. The dreadnought Retribution led a formation of 20 human warships, their hulls scarred from previous battles but their weapons ready for another fight. Behind them came cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels, all bearing the blue and gold colors of Earth's defense forces. Admiral Corinne Thompson's voice filled the Iron Will's bridge with calm authority. "This is Admiral Thompson to all ships. A cavalry has arrived. Let's show these bugs what happens when they threaten peaceful species under human protection." The human fleet engaged the swarm with tactics born from humanity's violent history. Some ships used ancient boarding techniques, sending Marines across space to fight hand-to-hand inside enemy hulls. Others employed cutting-edge technology, firing weapons that turned matter into energy and energy into death. The Cathari watched in awe as the human fleet fought with coordinated fury. Each ship knew its role, each captain understood the plan. Each crew member performed their duty with the precision of a species that had been preparing for this moment since they first looked up at the stars and wondered what might be waiting in the dark. The tide of battle turned as human reinforcements overwhelmed the swarm's numerical advantage. Bioships burned in the void while their crews screamed in frequencies that hurt to hear. The remaining swarm vessels tried to retreat, but human pursuit ships followed them into hyperspace, ensuring that none would escape to threaten other innocent species. As the last enemy ship died in nuclear fire, Captain Zilthara realized that she had just witnessed something unprecedented in her people's history. She had seen a species choose to fight and die for strangers, not because they had to, but because it was the right thing to do. The Deathworlders had kept their promise. They had answered the distress call, and they had paid the price in blood to keep their word. The silence after battle felt strange to Captain Zilthara. For hours, her world had been filled with the sounds of weapons firing, hulls breaking, and humans shouting orders as they fought to protect her people. Now the gentle current drifted peacefully among the wreckage of the swarm fleet, its crystal hull patched with human metal that looked ugly but kept them alive. Through her ship's windows, she could see the scattered remains of 50 bioships floating in the darkness like the bones of dead monsters. The human fleet moved among the debris, making sure no swarm creatures had survived to threaten anyone else. Their ships bore new scars from the battle, and she knew that good people had died to save her crew. Admiral Karen Thompson stood in the Gentle Current's main hall, surrounded by both human officers and Cathari crew members. She was a tall woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles, but her voice was gentle as she spoke to the alien survivors. "I'm sorry for your losses," Thompson said to Captain Zilthara. "I know this must be frightening for your people. War is never easy, especially for those who have never experienced it before." Zilthara looked around at her crew, seeing how they watched the human admiral with a mixture of fear and gratitude. "Admiral Thompson, 17 of your people died protecting us. We do not understand why you would sacrifice your own kind for strangers." Thompson was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to explain concepts that the peaceful aliens had never needed to learn. "Captain, in human history we have a saying, 'Greater love has no one than this,' that someone laid down his life for his friends. Your people became our friends the moment you asked for help." Dr. Martinez was recording everything for Earth's xenological archives, but she found herself more interested in watching the cultural exchange than in taking notes. The Cathari were trying to understand sacrifice, while the humans were learning what true innocence looked like. Chief Walsh emerged from the ship's engineering section, his uniform dirty from installing permanent defensive systems throughout the Gentle Current. Behind him came several Cathari engineers, including Takmiran, who looked both fascinated and overwhelmed by what they had learned. "Captain Zilthara," Walsh reported, "we've installed shield generators, automated defense systems, and emergency protocols throughout your ship. Your people will need training to use them properly, but they should keep you safe from future attacks." Takmiran stepped forward nervously. "Chief Walsh has taught us about backup systems and redundant pathways. I confess the idea of building machines that expect to be damaged is difficult for us to understand. On our world, we create things to last forever in perfect harmony." "And that's beautiful," Walsh replied kindly. "But in a dangerous galaxy, perfect harmony isn't always possible. Sometimes you have to accept that things will break, people will get hurt, and the best you can do is be ready to fix what goes wrong." Colonel Rodriguez joined the group, her armor still showing burn marks from the boarding action. With her came Sergeant Jackson, whose left arm was in a medical brace but who had refused to be evacuated until all the Cathari were safe. "How are your people adapting to the new security measures?" Rodriguez asked Captain Zilthara. The crystal being's antennae drooped with sadness. "They are trying to learn, but it is difficult. One of my crew asked why we need locked doors if we trust everyone aboard our ship. I had to explain that we might encounter beings we cannot trust, and she began to cry." Rodriguez felt a pang of sympathy for the innocent aliens. "Captain, I know this is hard, but knowledge is better than ignorance, even when that knowledge is painful. Your people need to understand that the galaxy contains both beauty and danger." Admiral Thompson had been listening to the conversation with growing thoughtfulness. "Captain Zilthara, I have a proposal for you and your people. Earth would like to establish a formal alliance with the Cathari. We can provide protection and defensive training while your people can teach us about peaceful exploration and harmony. You would want to learn from us?" Zilthara asked in surprise. But you are so much stronger and more advanced in the ways of survival. Strength isn't everything, Thompson replied. Your people have achieved something that humans have been trying to accomplish for thousands of years. You've built a civilization based on peace, cooperation, and genuine care for others. We could learn a lot from that example. Dr. Martinez looked up from her notes with excitement. Think about what we could accomplish together. Human protection and Cathari wisdom. Your people could explore the galaxy safely while teaching other species that there are alternatives to violence and conquest. Over the following days, as human engineers worked to repair both ships, the cultural exchange deepened. Young human officers learned Cathari songs about the beauty of distant stars, while alien crew members practiced basic self-defense techniques with patient marine instructors. Lieutenant Torres found himself fascinated by Cathari art, which captured light in ways that human technology couldn't match. In return, he taught Valanda about human music, playing her recordings of Earth's greatest symphonies and watching her crystal wings flutter with delight at the complex harmonies. Ensign Davis worked with a group of young Cathari to establish communication protocols, learning their musical language while teaching them about human emergency signals. The project became a bridge between two completely different ways of thinking about the universe. Chief Walsh spent hours with Takmiran and the other Cathari engineers, not just installing human technology but explaining the philosophy behind it. Every system we build has to work even when everything else fails, he explained. We plan for the worst because we've learned that the worst usually happens eventually. But it was the memorial service for the fallen human crew members that truly opened the Cathari's eyes to their rescuer's nature. Captain Phillips stood before a holographic display showing the faces of 17 men and women who had died protecting strangers, speaking about each person's life and sacrifice. Sergeant Jackson threw himself between Swarmclaws and a Cathari engineer he had never met before that day, Phillips said, his voice strong with pride. He took wounds that will leave him scarred for life, but he never hesitated to put someone else's safety before his own. Captain Zilthara watched the humans honor their dead not with sorrow, but with celebration of how they had lived and died. These beings found glory in sacrifice, meaning in protecting others, purpose in standing between the innocent and those who would harm them. I am beginning to understand, she said quietly to Dr. Martinez. Your people are not just warriors, you are guardians. Martinez nodded, tears in her eyes as she listened to the stories of heroism and sacrifice. That's exactly what we are, Captain. Earth's children have learned to be the shield between the peaceful and the predators. As the memorial ended, Admiral Thompson received reports from across the galaxy. Long-range sensors had detected other peaceful species under attack by swarm fleets, while human colonies on the frontier were reporting increased alien raider activity. It seems we have our work cut out for us, Thompson told her assembled officers. The galaxy is full of innocent species who need protection, and we're the only ones willing to provide it. Captain Phillips looked out at the stars through the Iron Will's repaired windows. Admiral, request permission to establish permanent patrol routes through peaceful species territories. If we're going to be guardians, we need to be where the innocent can find us when they need help. Granted, Thompson replied. Send word to Earth Command. We're expanding our defensive perimeter to include any species that asks for our protection. Captain Zilthara made her final log entry as the human ships prepared to escort the gentle current back to Cathari space. Today I learned that the galaxy contains horrors beyond our imagination, but also heroes beyond our dreams. We sent a distress signal hoping for rescue, never knowing we would find guardians. She paused, watching human and Cathari crew members working together to prepare both ships for the journey home. The Deathworlders answered our call, and they have taught us that sometimes violence is necessary to protect peace. We will remember their sacrifice, and we will learn to be worthy of their protection. Admiral Thompson's final transmission went out across all human colonies and allied species. To any peaceful beings in distress, this is Admiral Karen Thompson of the Terran Defense Fleet. Earth's children are listening, and we will answer your call. No innocent species stands alone while humanity draws breath. In the depths of space, the message spread from system to system, carried by communication relays and peaceful traders. Across the galaxy, species that had never heard of humans began to learn that somewhere among the stars, a race of Deathworlders had appointed themselves protectors of all who could not protect themselves. The age of human guardianship had begun.